Chase, hit me with your top 5 quarterbacks.
All right. Number 1, Anthony Richardson from Florida. Number 2, CJ Stroud. Number 3, Bryce Young. Number 4, Will Levis. And number 5, Dorian Thompson-Robinson, DTR from UCLA.
Really? Oh, this is going to be fun. Okay, here's mine. Bryce Young at number 1. CJ Stroud at number 2. Hendon Hooker at number 3. Anthony Richardson at 4. Stetson Bennett.
Okay. Coming in with perfect, with a lot. Glad we saved this for last.
And so let me preface this. I think there is a huge gap for me in between number 1 and 2. So for me, right, between Bryce Young and CJ Stroud, to me, are 1A or 1B. I like Young better, so he's, my 1A. And then between number 2 and number 3, I think there's just a huge gap. And obviously that gap gets even bigger when you go from 3 to 4 to 4 to 5. So these are definitely not as close as some of these other positions. When we're talking about cornerback or safety or linebacker, to me, yes, it's a top 5 because you have to have 5, but it is, for me, not a close top 5.
Yeah. So I have a the same gap, but I've got it a little different. I've got, the top 3. I think there's a big gap there. I don't think you can go wrong with any of those 3 guys. Then I think Will Levis I still have a first round grade on him, but he is a tier on his own. And then I think there's a huge gap. A huge gap between him and it drops from I have first round grade on all of my 4 guys all the way down to a 5th to 6th round grade on DTR. So I think there's a huge gap there, but let's start out agreeing. Let's talk about, we have the same number 2 guy, right? CJ Stroud. There's not a ton to talk about, but he's accurate. He's pro ready. He's the model build that you want, right? I think he's our consensus number 1 pick, right? If you're the Panthers, You'd be pulling the trigger. So let's go on. We've got my number 3, your number 1, Bryce Young. Let's touch on him real fast.
Yeah, so obviously the concern is his size, his weight and his height and things like that. If he's going to be able to, play at the level, take the punishment. We've seen some smaller guys come into the league, have success. He's kind of compared to Drew Brees, but I just think that's, in this case, I think it's hogwash. I just throw it out the window. I said, if you can ball, you can ball, and Bryce Young can ball. Okay.
Yeah.
He obviously, Heisman winner, and you look at this past year when he was really, Alabama has had some of the best wide receivers in college football for the past 3 or 4 years, except for this year. So to look what he was able to do, where it took a miracle field goal against Tennessee to lose, and then a miracle 2-point conversion against LSU to lose, that knocked him, with the only 2 losses. So he played extremely well. I just love how he creates plays out of the pocket. He's able to run and keep his eyes downfield. He's accurate with the football as well. Just a playmaker. I love watching him, and I've said this before, where I'm in love with Young. If I could pick him as my quarterback, if I needed a quarterback in this draft, I would pick Young.
Yeah, and like I said, I have him at QB3. I still have a top 5 draft grade on him. I'm not low on Young at all. I just think I like CJ more because he's more pro style. My main concern, as we talked about it, is the size. And, a lot of time when you hear size, we think height, right? He's small. Oh, Aaron Rodgers fell in the draft because he was 6'2", and that was considered small back then. No, I'm talking about his weight, right? He weighed in at the combine at 2, I think 208 was his weight at the combine. That's not the playing weight. He's going to play more towards 190, 185. You look at the guys who weigh that, Lamar Jackson injured, Kyler Murray injured, Russell Wilson didn't really have injuries until late in his career, but he was injured to start with, right? A lot of the younger, the small weight guys can't take the hits, right? These guys, and this is Bryce Young's going to go to a team, who knows where he's going to go, but he's going to go early, and early teams really don't often have that best offensive lineman. I think he's going to get hit a lot, and I don't know if his body can hold up. I do think he's the best anticipatory thrower of the draft. I think he makes throws instead of to the receivers, to the areas where the receivers should be. I do think that. I think he's got a pretty decent arm on him. I don't think it's like a Kyler Murray arm where the Kyler, can throw that ball out of the stadium or anything like that, or Josh Allen arm. But I'm just worried about his body holding up to these NFL hits, right? We've seen him get injured this year playing at a college level. And yes, he's in the SEC. It just means more, right? That's their slogan. But the NFL is just, every team has these guys that are going to hit them hard. So that's where I worry a little bit about Young, but I wouldn't be mad if Young went number one. I see the value. I'm not blind, right? I see the value in him. So which one of these guys do you want to tackle next?
So I want to ask you about Anthony Richardson.
Okay, let me talk.
And so this one, I know you gave it to me straight. So before his combine, did you have him as number one?
I did.
Interesting. Okay.
I did.
The floor is yours. Go ahead and sell.
All right. So Anthony Richardson, right? He's the ideal project quarterback, right? When you think project quarterback, you think big, strong arm, mobile guy, more mobile than Josh Allen, maybe not as strong an arm. And the thing is that the project quarterbacks normally, right? Zach Wilson, I'm trying to think. I can't blank on a project quarterback right now.
Mahomes.
Who was the guy? Mahomes. Yeah, Mahomes was one, but there's not another guy that I'm just blanking on, but they struggle with pressure, right? This guy, Anthony Richardson was the least sacked quarterback in this draft class. He doesn't take sacks, right? He's not, he doesn't freak out. Where his project is in his footwork, right? He's got that kind of Aaron Rodgers syndrome where his feet get pointed to the sidelines and he launches that boy down the field. And I think that is one thing that you can teach a quarterback is footwork, right? We've seen it done over and over again. Josh Allen had poor footwork. Brian DeBoer worked with him. I'm trying to think. I had more examples. I should have wrote them down. I think that is his need is his mechanics, not necessarily his arm or top torso. He throws with his body like you're supposed to. He doesn't just rely on his strong arm, but his footwork gets a little twisted and he gets he gets a little outside of his body when he throws. But what I like a lot about him is the number one thing I look for a quarterback is how do you handle pressure, right? Pressure is going to come in the NFL, just like Mahomes, right? He won the Super Bowl. He pressured crazy. Joe Burrow went to the Super Bowl, got sacked 9 times in the Super Bowl, or in not the Super Bowl, the divisional round against the Titans. But I think Anthony Richardson can handle pressure. And I think if you got a guy like that can handle pressure, I think he's worth a shot. I think his potential's through the roof. Will he ever reach it? That's the fun of the draft. We don't know. But I really think that this guy could be the next best thing in the NFL.
That's a take, my friend. That's a take. I just, not saying it can't be successful, but, for me, I have eyes. I have eyes. My eyes have seen the good. My eyes have seen the bad, and my eyes have seen a lot more bad than good. And so It's going to be one of those things where I don't know. It's just I couldn't get over it to where you would actually honestly consider taking him over Young or Stroud. If he wants to be the third quarterback off the board, I think he probably will be.
And I think he will be too.
That's fine or whatever. But to rank him over Stroud or Young, I think you're crazy.
Yeah. So I honestly think the draft will play out. Stroud 1, Bryce Young 2, and I think it should. I think those teams are drafting for now, right? They need that franchise guy. But I'm thinking about a team like the Vegas Raiders who can sit him behind Jimmy, or I'm thinking about the team that can get him like the Bears did with Justin Fields, right? They can get him in, throw him in kind of when there's no expectations really on him, let him work with what he's got as he's getting better as a passer. Because as electric as Justin Fields was last year, the dude struggled passing. And that's same thing. He gets outside his body, a little bit mobile, wants to jump on his feet, not plant his back foot as much. I think Anthony Richardson has the same thing, but I think he's a better athlete and he's got a stronger arm than Fields. I'm really interested to see. And like we've said a million times, it's about coaching. If Anthony Richardson goes to a coach like Adam Gase, I don't know, someone who can't, a QB whisperer that's not a QB whisperer, right, on smelling salts during the press conference, he's going to flame out of the league. But I think if you can get him with a young guy that knows, maybe even an old guy that knows what he's doing and knows how to work with a quarterback, right? He had a goofball quarterback at Florida, and then I think Dan Mullins was his quarterback, and then the Oregon guy came over as the coach for Florida this year, and I can't even think of what his name is, but neither one of them was real
Napier.
big offensive guys. Napier, thank you. Yeah. Neither one of them was necessarily quarterback whisperers, right? I mean, Justin Herbert was phenomenal at Oregon, but he's a phenomenal quarterback. That wasn't Oregon shaping him. So I'm interested to get him into an actual NFL, study time, get him like a Jordan Palmer type guy, right? Jordan Palmer, the QB whisperer, get him something like that to work with him and get his feet. And I think that's his major thing. I think his accuracy comes down to his feet, not his decision making. I really think that is the major flaw. And I think that's a very fixable flaw for someone that has a ceiling out of the roof.
Well, we'll see how that plays out. So something else here is interesting. So I know you have Will Levis in your top 5. I do not. So I definitely want to touch on that. I see a lot of him. Probably the consistent ranking is probably QB4 in the draft class. I think by a lot of people. I cannot stand Will Levis, and I will not touch him with a 12-foot pole. I want him nowhere near my team at all. I do not see it. And when I look at a quarterback, I want to look at how you play the position. I don't care about your arm. I don't care how far you can throw the ball. That seems to be the only talking point when it comes to Will Levis. And I don't get how you can be an NFL quarterback when you only have one thing that's talked about. Like, I know when we talk about Bryce Young, we talk about his athleticism, his accuracy, his poise. Same thing with Stroud. He's accurate. All these different things. Every other quarterback here has multiple things that people mention when they're talking about him. When it comes to Will Levis, the only thing I ever hear, even from him himself, the only thing I ever hear is that I had throw the ball a mile. That's the only thing.
Yeah, let me give you why I still have him as a first round. So I think his release is insane. I think he's got one of the fastest releases I've ever seen. He gets that ball out fast, and I think that I contrary to what he played at this year, I think he's more accurate than he seems. But let me tell you the reason that I'm not as high. I have a very late first round. I think the potential. I draft a lot on potential at quarterback. Maybe that's a bad thing to do, but where he falters, where his accuracy goes down, where it doesn't matter how much, is Will Levis has zero pocket presence. Literally has no idea what to do when that pocket collapses, right? When he has a little bit of pressure, the dude just chucks the ball and sees how far he can go, and normally that's right into the defender's hands. That's where his accuracy drops. That's where he gets into trouble. This guy's pocket presence and just pressure handling is just it's insane. It reminds me a lot of I just lost the name. The Ohio State's quarterback that drafted by the Redskins. Haskins, yes. It reminds me a lot of Haskins. A little weaker arms. Haskins better, but Haskins was a very cement-footed, true pocket passer. And when the pocket wasn't clean, Haskins just didn't know what to do. And that's what I see in Will Levis, except his release is amazing, right? That's what I kind of fall in love with. Yeah, his arm's strong, and the old adage, you can't coach arm strength, right? You can't make Drew Brees' arm any stronger than it is, right? So I understand some of the hype for his arm strength, but also like his release is insane. It reminds me of almost like Aaron Rodgers-esque release. Not his ability, but just the time it takes him to leave that ball and where it leaves his hand. Just that's a thing of beauty. But I'm not as high as consensus are. I think Mel Kiper. I think that's Will Levis is Mel Kiper's QB1 in this draft, which should show you that he's probably not going to be that good because Kiper hasn't been good in forever. But that's where I have Levis. I like his release. I like his arm strength. I think he's a little bit more accurate than people give credit for. A lot of people are comparing him to Zach Wilson for some reason. I don't really see any comparison to Zach Wilson to Will Levis. They're two completely different quarterbacks. But the thing that scares me is the dude just crumbles under pressure.
Yeah, and for me, a big thing for me when I'm looking at who I want as a quarterback is I want to know how you are situationally, or how you're competing, and when I need you to step up and make a play to extend a drive or to score a touchdown to get the lead or something like that, I need you to at least make that play or give your your receiver or whatever a chance to make a play. Obviously, if they drop or do something, that's not on you, but you gave them the opportunity. And I watched time after time again, just this season, to where they lost games because of Levis. They did not win games because of him. They lost games because of him. And so for me, it's just so hard for me to say, oh, that's the guy I want as my quarterback whenever you're literally the reason why teams are losing games. And very, very winnable games, too. I look back at how he performed against Tennessee. Tennessee had a terrible defense this year. He was not able to do anything against Tennessee. He had the chance at the end of the game to go, just get a first down to win the game, and he couldn't do it. And it's just, and so for me, that's just is what stuck in my mind, and I just can't do it. When you lose games because of yourself, I gotta tick you off. So that's definitely why I don't have him here in my top 5, and I would not touch him with the 12-foot full.
Yeah, and I understand all that. I agree with most of it. Honestly, I agree with all of it. I think his potential might be a little higher than some of the, again, I think this quarterback class is very top heavy and then drops off really very, very, very far.
Yeah, so I agree. Once you kind of get past, I'll give you 1 through 3. The top 3 quarterbacks. Once you do there, it's very struggling. So that's why I want to talk about my Stetson Bennett pick here at pick number 5.
Sure.
And I want to preface this because I was really looking at it. I was like, I knew I can't put Will Levis in, and some of these other quarterbacks, I just don't. They're decent. They're all right. I'm not high on Stetson Bennett at all. I want to make that clear. I don't think he's going to be some first round talent. I don't think he's going to come in and be a savior of a team. I think he'll probably be a backup his entire career. Maybe get a shot, if the team he goes to, their starting quarterback gets injured, and do that. So why I say that as I preface this is because I find him very similar to Brock Purdy. And now it's very weird that we have a 2-time national champion come in and he's not hyped up at all. Like, I just can't think of it, especially at the quarterback position. Like, I don't know if we've ever seen this before and it's not just because, so he's good because the talent around him. He plays up, he plays good, he plays well. But the Georgia Bulldogs won not because of him.
In spite of him,
They didn't lose because of him. So, he put them in positions to win games. He didn't put them in positions to lose games. And because of their defense and the playmakers around them, they were able to win games. It's very similar to how Brock Purdy was with the 49ers when he took the job over. He did not play them out of any games. He played well within the system, and he relied on his dynamic offensive weapons, good coaching, and a stellar defense to help propel him to the NFC Championship game, in which I think if he's healthy, they win that game.
I agree.
And so for me, when I'm looking at that, Stetson Bennett to me, I think is the Brock Purdy of this draft. I don't think he's going to be Mr. Irrelevant. I think he'll probably go around, I would say round 4 or 5.
Ooh, okay.
But just we're looking at this, and I just think it's interesting. So we're looking at it like, last year. Could you imagine Brock Purdy had the success? So these were the quarterbacks that were drafted last year. So we had Kenny Pickett. It was the only round 1 quarterback to the Steelers. You had Malik Willis to the Titans at round 3. Sam Howell to the Commanders, round 5. Desmond Ridder, Falcons, round 3. Matt Corral, Panthers, round 3. Chris Olgukin, Steelers, round 7. Bailey Zappi, Patriots, round 4. Brock Purdy, 49ers, round 7, Mr. Relevant. And then Skylar Thompson, also round 7 to the Dolphins. So horrible quarterback class.
Yes.
Last year, 100%. But you can't tell me after this past season that if you went back and did a redraft, that Brock Purdy would not be the first quarterback off the board.
Yeah.
And it's not even saying because he's actually the best quarterback of the group. He may not be. I think time will tell. Obviously, we're just 1 season in. But because he was put into a system with great coaching, great offensive weapons, and a great defense, he was able to play within that system, which is exactly what Stetson Bennett was asked to do in Georgia. And I think obviously what he's going to be asked to do in the NFL. And so if he's in the right system, I think he could be, a decent quarterback and play well within it.
Yeah, I agree. I think Stetson Bennett, there's some things that concern me about him, but again, he's not looked at, if he was looked at as a early day 2 guy or it's first round or even a 3rd round guy, I'd be fighting that a little bit more. But for the value that you'll get where he'll be drafted at, I can't complain, right? Stetson Bennett would probably make my top 10 if I made one for quarterbacks. Again, this quarterback class, we can't say it enough. And I think Stetson Bennett probably would have been my QB2 following Matt Corral last year. So, I'm not mad at that. I'm not a big Stetson Bennett guy. I think he's got some arrogance issues, right? Turned down the Senior Bowl, didn't want it, just some dumb things that he thought he didn't need to improve. Like, it's like that he doesn't want to improve his own stock going into this draft. It's not, it's just weird. Something rubs me wrong about that. You got some questions about this guy. Scouts want to see it. And then you're going to say, no, I'm too good for that. Like, come on, man. But I'm interested actually to talk about your quarterback 3. That's the guy that I am not a fan of, Mr. Hendon Hooker.
Hendon Hooker to the Vikings, baby. You hit it here first.
I would love that. Dude's 25, coming off an ACL and a gimmicky offense where he just, watching the Tennessee games I did watch, dude just stood straight, had no movement in the pocket, just stood straight up and launched the ball, hoping that his wide receivers would go get it. I am very low on Hendon Hooker. I think the world is very low. Well, maybe not. I've seen that mock draft come out on, I think NFL Network had it. I don't remember who actually put it out, but it had Hendon Hooker at number 5 to the Seahawks. Like, you got to be kidding me. This guy, this is the equivalent to putting up stats equals getting drafted, not looking at anything below that, right? As you preface, you have a huge gap already, so I'm not really talking about you, more talking about those NFL guys. But Hendon Hooker, I think we talked about a little bit when we talked about Hyatt, that gimmicky offense. I think that affects him less as a wide receiver, right? He's still learning the routes. He's just not running them. But Hendon Hooker, right? He reads only like half of the field every read. His plays are designed for that. Has very little movement outside of designated QB runs or QB scrambles. No, jumping on his feet or bobbing like quarterbacks you see like Mahomes or Herbert do, right? I am not a Hendon Hooker fan, and I'm 25 years old, coming off an ACL, so he'll be 26 before he even gets to experience any real NFL football. That's count me out.
It's a tough selling point for sure, and I don't knock you or anybody else for thinking that, but I look at what he's able to do. If we're talking about here, at least he had the second best passer rating behind CJ Stroud this past year. So when you talk about, being able to play well, he played phenomenal well. He was, a Heisman candidate there at one point, kind of, fell off down there at the stretch, obviously when he got hurt. He was playing Tennessee into the national playoffs. Obviously, fell out when he kind of got hurt. And they lost that second game, but definitely had a shot there at the end to make the playoffs. And I think maybe the story is a little bit different of him, but I agree. So, whenever he's back there and the pocket is clean, he's phenomenal. But whenever the pocket starts to break down and he has to kind of scramble and stuff, where Bryce Young kind of excels at that point, Hooker kind of goes the other way. So I'm with you on that one. Like we mentioned, there is a huge gap here in between. But as far as the other quarterbacks, I really like Hendon Hooker. He's one of the, I wouldn't say he's a draft crush of mine, but when we're talking about these quarterbacks, just his ability to throw the ball deep. He had one of the highest deep grades of all quarterbacks this past season. And so obviously the pocket's not going to be clean 24/7, so we definitely would have to work on that scrambling. But I don't think he's going to come in and be a starter anytime soon, but I think he can add, depth to a position. And so, so I like Hendon Hooker. Like I said, I think, we saw the Vikings kind of take a chance on Kellen Mond out of A&M a couple years ago. And I think they probably look at Hendon Hooker as well, because that kind of play style is kind of similar to Kirk Cousins, where Kirk isn't out there scrambling and running around, very much. And so neither is going to be Hendon Hooker, although Hooker would be 10 times more athletic than Kirk Cousins. But that's kind of my idea behind it is looking at, just his, he had a great completion percentage, almost 70%, had a great passer rating, second out of these top 5, at least my top 5 guys. And so just the ability to make plays when the pocket is clean shows promise. Obviously the injury and age is a question for sure. But you're still getting him on that 5-year deal, to where, might be able to make something happen. And, we'll kind of see, but I do like Hendon Hooker. I enjoyed watching him in college, and we'll see if that translates to the NFL at all.
Yeah. Think about that. By the time it would be you get your second contract for your quarterback, he'd be 30 years old. That's crazy.
That's crazy. Yeah.
So
So it's
just
tough sledding for him for sure. But
yeah. Just briefly, I'm going to touch on my quarterback 5 because this is my drafts. Again, I have him a 5th round grade on him, but this is my draft crush. DTR from UCLA, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I think he's got all right accuracy. He's elusive in the pocket. His deep ball, he actually had the highest velocity at the draft. He throws the ball the hardest, right? That's not even Will Levis, but there's something about this kid. I never think, I don't think he'll ever be a starter, but he could be a Gardner Minshew, Nick Foles type where he could come in and win games for you, right? When, a Brian Fitzpatrick type that come in and win 2 out of 3 games for you. I like him as a career backup and just a good guy to have on your roster, right? I'm kind of crushing on DTR, to be honest, for no reason really, but